What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So, my New York Islanders just wrapped up what I can only describe as the most pathetic, feeble, embarrassing performance by any team in the entire NHL this season, in a loss where they were up 4-1 against the San Jose Sharks. Worst team in the entire league, one of the worst offenses in the entire league, the worst offense in the entire league. They were up 4-1 with 10 minutes left in the game. They actually had a good start to the third period. They were up 2-1. Third period, they usually collapse. Well, obviously they did collapse, but they go up 4-1, and then they just fall apart, like they have over the past couple weeks, and they go on to lose in overtime. William Eklund goal. Hurdle gets a goddamn hat trick against the Islanders. 2 goals in the final 4 minutes. Just an utter disaster, and as a result, obviously, people are rightfully so calling for Lambert's head, because this has been a common theme throughout the entire season when looking at the New York Islanders. This is not just a one-off embarrassing, which is why, in my opinion, it is probably the most embarrassing loss that I have ever experienced as an Islanders fan. It's definitely not the worst loss. I've experienced playoff losses, Game 7 versus Tampa, but just pure embarrassment of being embarrassed of being a fan of this franchise. It's up there, because when you look at this team in the month of November, October, December, the number one thing with this team is the goddamn blown leads. They have blown 11 third period leads in their first 24 games. So basically every other game, they're leading in the third period. They're entering the third period frame with a lead, and they fumble it. They end up getting tied. They go to overtime. They lose in regulation. You look at the Devils game. What was this? That was like a week ago. They had a 2-goal lead in the third period. Ended up losing in goddamn regulation. There was the embarrassing overtime loss against the Vancouver Canucks when they were up in the third period on national TV. Hughes would go on to be wide open in overtime and end up potting it against Sorokin. Carolina Hurricanes, they almost blew that when they were on Hulu, and obviously tonight it really just came to a head against the worst team in the entire NHL. They're not even immune to blowing leads against literally the worst team, and in my opinion, that's on coaching. He's not riling up the guys coming into the third period. He's not adjusting his game plan in the third period. I talked about it with DJ Smith. DJ Smith in the second period, the Sens are allowing the same amount of goals as the first and third period combined. It's even worse with Lambert, because they're playing so bad in the third period when winning happens. So when looking at this, it's just so disappointing, because the Islanders still have 27 points in 24 games. You look at them in the Eastern Conference playoff race, they're technically in a spot right now, and they have a 92% points percentage on the season. Like, they're getting the loser point, which obviously sucks. I hate getting the goddamn loser point. But this team should have at least 32 points in 24 games right now. They should have at least a 65 around points percentage safely in the playoffs, because when you look at it, they're blowing leads, and oh no, that's not the right one. They have been trailing during per game the least amount out of any team in the entire NHL at 10 minutes and 37 in games. That's all they've been trailing on average per game. It's basically, maybe they let in the first goal and then they go up and then they lose the lead with freaking 5 minutes left and they go on to lose it. This team has been so great in the first 50 minutes of games, 55 minutes in games, but then they just fall apart. They get this lead. They don't pressure the team. They give up the blue line way too easily. It's just an utter embarrassment. Their entire defensive structure just falls apart once they get this lead. They play so passive. They play so embarrassing. It's the same thing every night, man. I don't get how, if don't get me wrong, Sorokin probably should have made a save. 1,000%. He was not great tonight, especially in the final 10 minutes in overtime. But it hasn't been on the goalies. This isn't a Minnesota. This isn't an Edmonton where the goalies are playing like utter dog shit. This, in my opinion, is just the overall system just fails once a team has desperation, is down in the third period, and actually starts hammering the Islanders. Against Barry Trotz, they were able to hold the blue line. They were able to keep their defensive structure. That's just not happening under Lambert. It didn't happen last year. It's not happening this year. It is an utter disaster. The Islanders used to just be able to slog teams in the final 10 minutes, just shut down the blue line, no zone position, easily clear it out. It's not happening anymore. It's not happening anymore. And I think you obviously need to bring in a coach to goddamn change this because, again, like I tweeted out tonight, the season is not lost. They're still on pace for 92 goddamn points. This isn't a Columbus Blue Jackets that are god-awful. Edmonton Oilers, when they fired Woodcroft and they were at like 25% points percentage, I still think the Edmonton Oilers can come back, but they're in a decent position. I think you have to fire Lane, bring in an actual coach in this team, especially with the Devils starting out as bad as they are. Because even with this Eastern playoff scenario, right now the third team in the goddamn Metro is the Philadelphia Flyers, who have roughly the same points percentage as the New York Islanders. I'm taking the New York Islanders to finish higher than the Philadelphia Flyers. Yes, the Capitals do have a higher points percentage right now than the Islanders, but the Capitals haven't blown 11 third-period leads. Devils are going to eventually turn it up. Don't get me wrong, but still, this is easily a goddamn wild card team if they have a better structure in place, especially defensively, to hold leads in the future. I just can't keep watching this. Obviously, I've spoken lowly of Lou before. I'm not the biggest Lane Lambert fan before the season. I thought he arguably could have got fired this summer, but he didn't make the playoffs, so you can't get too mad. But we have seen enough. He is not Barry Trotz 2.0. We only hired him because he was Barry Trotz's guy in, I think, like starting in Nashville. He was his guy in Washington, brought him over to the Islanders. He's been with the organization for what, like 5 years now, or maybe even 6. So they thought that he was going to be that coach. Maybe you give him one season. It wasn't a fantastic season, but you give him that season to grow. And then what has he done this season? It's been a disaster. It's not his system. Why we're 56 points percentage right now. We're actually having some of our star players actually play like goddamn star players. Bo Horvat's playing great. Brock Nelson's playing great. Matt Barzal is going to get over 70 points for the first time since his fucking rookie year. So when looking at this, it's just maddening, dude. It is just maddening. I don't know how you continue to watch this team if you're Lou Lamoriello. I almost called him just Lou Lambert there. They got too much goddamn alliterations. LL and LL just gotta freaking both go. But when looking at Lane Lambert, I don't know how you don't bring in a guy like a Dean Evison that has had that defensive structure with the Minnesota Wild. I know he hasn't had that much playoff success, but that has that defensive structure that he had in Minnesota. He did have a very good defensive defenseman, but I think that he can unlock some of the Islanders' defense. And Pelech hasn't been himself. He's hurt now, obviously, but like the Islanders, he can unlock some of the Islanders' defensive attributes of their defensemen. Even a Jay Woodcroft might not be the perfect stylistic fit going from the Edmonton Oilers to the New York Islanders. That might be a little bit hard of an adjustment for him, and I wouldn't blame him going from like the fastest team in the goddamn league to a more slow-paced defensive team, but I don't know. I would take Bruce Boudreau at this point over Lane Lambert, which is kind of crazy to say because I've been lower on the Bruce Boudreau, but at least he will reinvigorate this group and at least change something within it. I might even take Daryl Sutter over Lane Lambert. That's how desperate I am right now for a goddamn coach. It has just been so draining to watch this team night in and night out. When the Carolina game, they ended up winning it, but like I was not even shocked when they allowed a goal with like 2 seconds left. There was definitely 10 seconds left. They allowed a goddamn goal to blow yet another third period lead. It just happens every single time. I don't know how you can justify, because even though they are 56 points percentage, I don't know how you justify this level of play, because when looking at the Islanders going forward, I don't think that they're as they should have been as dominant as they've been in terms of the third period aside. They have been so dominant. I think that's eventually going to regress. So once that regression comes and they're not dominating the first 2 periods, it's I think they're going to be battling for a wild card spot is what I'm trying to say. And in a wild card battle, you basically threw away 4, 5, 6 points in these first 24 games. That's going to screw them when they finish with 91 points, 92 points, 90 points, 89 points, and miss the playoffs by between 1 to 5 points. That's going to drive me mad, because it's going to be because of this start. It's simply going to be unacceptable from the New York Islanders, and just overall, just very disappointing. I obviously the change won't happen until tomorrow morning, if it happens at all. I don't think it is. That's the crazy thing. I think they're just going to say, we're getting the results we have. You want to see Lane Lambert's post-game press conference remarks? He said, "We had the game under control with 8 minutes and a half left. To lose that hockey game is a sin. Yeah, it's a fireable sin. That's what it is, Lane Lambert. Thank you for your service. You were a good assistant coach under Barry Trotz. Helped us have a ton of playoff success, but it is obvious that you were not a head coach, that your teams are crumbling under the pressure, and as you said, it is a sin. I just cannot believe that he said that. Like, oh, we were controlling the game till 8.5 left. It's just such... The vibes are so low in Islander land despite being on 92-point pace, which is absolutely insane. But overall, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Do you think the Islanders will fire Lane Lambert? And if so, do you think they will end up making the playoffs? If they fire him right now, I think they would make the playoffs. I think they'd get that new coach bump, stop blowing third period leads, and be good. But if they keep him, I think vibes are just going to continue to get worse, and they won't even have third period leads to goddamn blow. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about all of that? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.